Chosen one. Masculinity that must announce itself has already begun to doubt. Masculinity that can be witnessed has nothing to prove and everything to offer. It is a melody, not a march, a sanctuary, not a spectacle. Women do not become proud of you because you perfected an image. They become proud because, when they look, there is something to see that holds. They can point their friends, their sisters, and their future children toward you without flinching. Not because you are flawless, but because your flaws are integrated into a life that keeps telling the truth. Witness begins in small rooms. The kitchen where you rinse the dish you did not dirty. The hallway where you lower your voice because midnight has asked for silence. The car where you drive like other people are real. The text where you clarify before anxiety multiplies. These are not moments designed for an audience, and it is precisely their privacy that makes them persuasive. The feminine eye has learned to discount staged goodness. It is trained to bless what goodness does when no one is measuring. Your masculinity is visible here because it has not learned to hide behind performance. It is comfortable doing good where gratitude may never arrive. To be witnessed is to be legible at human distance. Legibility is not transparency without boundaries. It is continuity without tricks. Your face and your tone and your timing agree with each other often enough that people stop needing to translate you. Translation is expensive. When it is no longer required, energy is released for tenderness, creativity, and play. This is why your presence often brings laughter back to a table that had forgotten how to make room for it. You did not tell a better joke, you created a better climate. Masculinity that can be witnessed does climate work. It saves nervous systems from carrying the tax of unpredictability. You hold strength and softness in a way that lets both be seen without apology. Strength shows up as decision that opens paths rather than closes them, as protection that does not audition for heroism, as steadiness that does not ask to be paid in praise. Softness shows up as listening that alters the plan when truth arrives, as affection that does not require a stage, as grief that does not outsource its tears to anger. When the two move together, a room stops bracing. Women stop negotiating for the right to be complex. They simply are. They witness you and feel witnessed by you in the same breath. Pride rises there, first quietly, then in the way a name is spoken, with a smile that means home. Witnessed masculinity carries a particular honesty about power. You do not pretend to have less than you do, and you do not use it to make reality smaller than it is. You let your advantages become levers for fairness, not props for narrative. You resist the frictionless slide into dominance by practicing deference where someone else's expertise must lead, by requesting consent where culture would permit assumption, by making space where silence has been costly. These are not gestures of guilt, they are gestures of stewardship. They teach anyone watching that power can be safe in a man's hands because it is subject to a higher love than self. Conflict is where witness often fails. It is also where yours strengthens. You have laid down the false choices between winning and betraying yourself. You tell the truth at a temperature that can be held. You hold the line without sharpening it to wound. You refuse to turn disagreement into humiliation, even when you are right and a laugh line would be easy. You do not ask anger to do hope's work. You let hope govern anger's use. When you miss it, and you will, because weather changes faster than forecasts, you repair with speed and specificity. A woman hearing your apology does not have to become a mother or a judge to receive it. She can be a partner because you have remained a man. Witnessed masculinity is fundamentally accountable, not to the swarm, but to the circle. You gather chosen ones who can tell you when your eloquence is outrunning your evidence, when fatigue is trying to name itself destiny, when the tone you used at noon would make midnight unsafe. You let them move furniture in your interior house, and you do not fire them when a couch is heavy. This humility keeps your visibility from becoming volatility. It also gives women a reason to believe that your growth will continue after the season shifts, because they can see the greenhouse, not just the fruit. Visibility without appetite is another of its signatures. You can be seen without needing to be fed by being seen. You do not chase the camera in your head or in the world. You practice the holy absence of posting the sacred, the restraint of not making private tenderness public currency. The sanity of letting some victories be known only by the 2 or 3 who paid for them. This does not make you small, it makes you trustworthy. Trustworthy men are safe to be celebrated. They can carry crowns without forgetting ceilings, and they can set crowns down when work returns. Let your body join the witness. Stand in doorways like a welcome, not a filter. Sit at tables as if ideas, not egos, are the honored guests. Walk beside a woman at her pace without narrating your sacrifice. Touch with grammar, asking, listening, adjusting, so that desire becomes a sentence both of you can read without guessing at punctuation. Bodies know when they are being respected. They also know when they are being performed at. Yours tells the truth, even when no one is grading it. That truth is received as safety, and safety invites desire to be as alive as it was made to be without borrowing fear for fuel. Work is part of the witness. You do not outsource worth to titles. You build usefulness into your craft so others are freed by what you make, not impressed by how loudly you made it. You leave instructions behind you so the thing can function when you are elsewhere. You remember the names of those who clean the spaces where your excellence is showcased. You tip as if gratitude should be visible. You rest as if endurance is a team sport. Men who do these things are not hard to spot. They are hard to forget. Women are proud to point and say that one when their daughters ask what safe looks like when it wears work boots and a grin. Play belongs here as well. You let joy be muscular. You dance like a man who knows dignity does not fear rhythm. You laugh in a register that does not require a victim. You celebrate early drafts and honest attempts, yours and theirs, because you remember that mastery grew up in a house where kindness lived. You are serious where weight requires it, and unserious where life begs for it. Serious men who can play keep rooms human. Humanity is where love survives its headlines. The feminine recognizes this balance and relaxes into the kind of pride that plans instead of merely praises. Let the witness extend to endings. You leave rooms with the floors swept and the lights off. You end relationships without salting the ground. You decline invitations without turning the host into a villain. You tell the story later with gratitude where it is due and silence where drama would be delicious. Endings are exams. They reveal the essence of what the beginning advertised. The way you close confirms what women suspected when they first watched you enter, that your masculinity is not a costume. It is a character formed by 1,000 small obediences to love. Hold all this with joy. You are not being asked to carry the world, only to carry your corner of it with such integrity that anyone who passes through leaves steadier than they arrived. That is the witness. Not eyes on you, but lives lifted by you. When the feminine says she is proud, it is not a coronation. It is a confirmation that the melody holds, the sanctuary stands, and the child within her, who has always known what safety should feel like, has recognized it at last. Keep playing the melody, keep tending the house, keep choosing the circle over the swarm. In doing so, you will remain, as chosen ones are, a man who can be pointed to without caveat, a weather people can plan by, a presence that does not diminish anyone to be strong. Chosen one, your stillness is not an absence, it is a room. It is a room with windows open to honest weather, and a door that knows the difference between welcome and intrusion. Feminine single women step into that room and feel their shoulders remember where they belong. They are not asked to hurry their stories or shrink their sunlight. They are not drafted into the exhausting work of interpreting a man whose mood changes the temperature every 10 minutes. Your stillness holds like good timber. It does not require translation. It lowers the cost of being present, and because presence gets cheaper near you, truth gets richer. This stillness was not donated by luck. You built it plank by plank in mornings no one photographed, when you chose breath before broadcast and prayer before performance. You put structure under your peace so it could be shared without collapsing. You learned to let silence be furniture rather than a vacuum. You stopped buying urgency from merchants who profit when men forget how to rest. You kept a Sabbath that was not a trend but a treaty, a weekly promise that your worth would not be rented to noise. In time, your nervous system retired from security work, and your spirit took over hosting. Hosting is what your stillness does now. It sets a table where other souls can eat without bargaining. There is a practical gentleness in the way your stillness operates. You angle the chair so there is both an exit and an option. You answer the text that would otherwise generate a garden of anxious stories. You allow a conversation to ripen at human speed, refusing to pick it while it is still green for the thrill of being first. Your hands have learned the craft of being quiet without being idle. A glass of water appears before a throat cracks. A blanket finds a lap before bravado freezes it. These gestures are not performance. They are the housekeeping of peace. Peace requires housekeeping. Your stillness is tidy enough that other people's tenderness does not trip. Stillness is not stagnation. It is calibrated motion. In a storm, you do not freeze. You refuse to flail. You ask the right small questions. What is true here? What is mine to do? What can wait without harm? And you move at the pace those answers approve. When conflict arrives gasping for spectacle, you give it oxygen for accuracy instead. You lower the room's pulse until dignity can make decisions. No one feels managed. They feel witnessed. A woman learns in your company that she does not have to spend her calm to finance your intensity. Her pride rises in the simple relief of not being drafted as a regulator of chaos. Your stillness speaks in a grammar the body trusts. Your eyes welcome without inventorying. Your posture says there is time without advertising boredom. Your laugh does not ask anyone to pay for its brightness. Your no leaves the doorframe unbroken. Your yes arrives scaled to reality rather than to the fear of being forgotten. Everything about your being seems to agree on one sentence. We can tell the truth here without being taxed for it. The feminine reads that sentence without needing words. Her intuition, which has grown expert at scanning for exits, begins instead to search for depth. There is a way your stillness honors joy that many forget. You treat delight as a citizen, not a tourist. You make room for laughter that does not need a victim, for celebration that does not take out a loan from tomorrow's energy, for play that does not abandon responsibility but dances with it. This is not a small thing. Rooms that can laugh without cruelty are rare. Men who can laugh that way are rare. Your stillness is the stage on which joy performs without falling through the boards. Women are proud to return to such rooms because their softness does not have to armor itself to survive an evening. Your stillness protects boundaries without asking anger to wear the badge. You can decline with warmth and accept without hunger. You can let a conversation end before it corrupts its own goodness. You can walk away from an argument that is auditioning for a crowd. You do not confuse scarcity with significance or drama with depth. This restraint is felt as reverence. Reverence raises the ceiling for intimacy because intimacy trusts that it will not be coerced into hurrying. The hidden miracle of stillness is that it makes passion safer. Heat behaves when the house is well built. You keep this sanctuary by tending to the hinges no one applauds. Sleep happens on time often enough that your patience does not need caffeine to impersonate kindness. Food is chosen to serve your clarity rather than your cravings. Your phone learns it is a tool and not a tyrant. Your schedule keeps white space large enough for mercy to write itself in. You rehearse the sentence that saves many hours, let me think and return, so that speed does not get to pose as devotion. None of this will trend, and yet it is precisely why women leave your presence more themselves than when they arrived. Stillness quietly multiplies selfhood. The chosen ones will recognize this sanctuary by the fruit it leaves behind. After a talk with you, someone remembers an option they had dismissed. After a day with you, someone notices that their breath never once asked for permission. After a season near you, someone realizes they have made decisions from hope instead of from habit. Pride grows from these realities like ivy on a well-kept wall. It is not pride in your name as a brand, but pride in what a life can become when steadiness keeps house. Be proud of that. Carry it without swagger. Let your quiet be a climate others can plan by, and keep the door simple. Welcome. There is room. Stay as yourself. Chosen one, under your stillness there is a fire, and it is the right kind. It does not audition as wildfire to prove it exists. It burns clean. It cooks what hope brings, warms what grief chills, and refuses to scorch what innocence still believes. Feminine single women sense this heat the way winter hands sense a good hearth from a doorway. They move closer not because spectacle has called them, They move because the promise of nourishment has. Your flame is hidden only in the sense that it is not for display. It is no secret to those who stand near. It shows itself in temperature rather than in noise. This flame is tended, not teased. You feed it with sources that do not leave smoke on the soul, work that serves more than mirrors, prayer that cuts quietly through pretense, friendships that correct as faithfully as they celebrate, study that enlarges compassion instead of weaponizing certainty, rest that arrives as obedience rather than as collapse. You have learned to refuse accelerants that burn bright and then build a future. Flattery purchased as affection, outrage rented as importance, chemistry mistaken for covenant. Because you say no to these fuels, your fire can stay. Desire lives here and learns its manners. It is not starved into sainthood or stuffed into spectacle. It is trained like a strong dog that loves to run and knows when to heel. You ask consent with your voice and with the grammar of your body. You listen before you touch. You adjust before you insist. You do not draft pace from panic or tenderness from fear. You can want and wait without resentment because you have made patience part of your passion instead of treating it like an enemy. In such heat, a woman's yes is free to be wholehearted and her no is free to be holy. Freedom is the oxygen of your flame. It is why the room warms instead of warning. Your hidden flame refuses to compete with anyone's light. It does not need to dim another to look bright. You tilt lamps so her radiance can be accurately seen. You quote the sentence that turned the evening. You credit the hands that laid the table for a moment to happen. Heat like this belongs to hospitality. It sends people back into their lives with more warmth than they came with. Women are proud of a man who can carry fire that multiplies rather than monopolizes. They speak of you not as an exception to despair, but as proof that goodness can be heated without being harmed. Anger, when it visits your fire, learns the same vows. It burns for the sake of justice, not for the thrill of ruin. It names what is wrong without inventing enemies to stay interesting. It cools when safety returns, instead of keeping the pot at a boil to feel alive. You are not ashamed of this anger. You shepherd it. You strike iron where shape is needed, and you return the hammer to its hook. This is a relief to those who have known men whose rage asked to be fed and finally ate the house. Your heat protects the house. It keeps predators outside and tenderness inside. The contrast is unmistakable. Flame becomes visible in the way you choose scale. You do not require grand gestures to believe love is real. You keep a small fire going daily and let it do the humble miracles that keep futures intact. The check-in that prevents drama from needing to be loud. The note that arrives before courage thinks of quitting. The meal that blesses a hard week without asking to be photographed. The apology that closes a wound while it is still a scratch. These are embers with long memories. They learn your hands. They meet you gladly each morning you return. Your hidden flame becomes culture because you teach others where the wood is stacked and how to shelter a match. You show how to bank coals for tomorrow, how to widen the circle when the night grows cold, how to lower the flame when the stew needs time to become itself. You do not position yourself as the only hearth in town. You encourage fires to start elsewhere, and you are not threatened when they do. This is a sign that your heat is holy. It does not hoard. It distributes. It turns admirers into keepers and keepers into chosen ones, people who can be trusted with warmth because they were taught to love its purpose more than its praise. There is an intimacy to this flame that cannot be faked. In rooms where affection and truth must share the same chair, your fire knows how to seat them. You do not use heat to bend will. You use it to soften what grief has hardened so that will can choose. You do not call chemistry a covenant, and you do not call caution a curse. You let the slow engineering of devotion build what spark could only promise. The result is aliveness with a memory. It remembers what it is for. It remembers how to return after absence without demanding a parade. It remembers to bless before it asks to be believed. Guard your fire from the twin thieves of spectacle and shame. Spectacle will try to convince you that warmth is worthless unless it is loud. Shame will try to convince you that warmth is dangerous unless it is hidden. Answer both with stewardship. Keep feeding the quiet fuels. Keep refusing the shortcuts. Keep putting the logs of rest and truth and craft and honest companionship where they belong. Keep opening the circles so those who come shivering can thaw without becoming currency. Keep letting the fire be something people plan their evenings by, rather than their opinions. When women say you have become their pride, they are not crowning a personality. They are blessing a temperature. They are naming the rare sensation of feeling more alive without feeling at risk. They are acknowledging that in a world where many flames consume, yours remembers to cook and to warm and to gather. Be proud of that remembrance. Carry it with the humility of a man who knows fire can bless or burn, depending on who tends it. Tend it like a keeper whose village depends on it. Tend it like a chosen one, whose calling is not to be the brightest blaze for a night, but to be the steady heat that makes love livable every day. Chosen one, a foundation is not a speech, it is a settlement of weight. It is the quiet agreement between stone and soil that says, we will hold and we will keep holding when the hour turns heavy and the crowd goes home. You have become such a settlement. Feminine single women feel it before language finds them. They step into conversation with you and discover there is no need to audition for gravity, no need to pay a toll to be taken seriously, no need to perform resilience to be allowed to rest. They call this pride in you. But what they are truly proud of is what their own bodies become in your presence. Unbraced, unhurried, unafraid of the drop. A foundation is not flattered by the walls it carries. It is faithful to them. Your faithfulness is the architecture under which futures feel possible again. You did not pour this footing in a single heroic afternoon. The ground had to be read, the soft places named, the drainage corrected, the old debris cleared without bitterness. You learned the stubborn patience of plumb lines. You learned that truth without tenderness cracks and tenderness without truth sags. And so you mixed them both until the mixture could cure in all weather. There were seasons when others mistook your slowness for doubt, your carefulness for caution, your quiet for the absence of vision. You kept working. You tamped the corners no one visits, because corners decide whether a house creaks in every wind. Now the wind tests you and discovers you are not made of echoes. Your foundation is legible across time because it is made of decisions that remember their purpose when no one is looking. You keep your words small enough to be kept and strong enough to be leaned on. You let your rest be an act of devotion rather than an emergency break. You draw boundaries with a carpenter's pencil, visible without violence, so those who love you can trust the outline of your life. You repair early, not because you are a perfectionist, but because you refuse to make tomorrow pay interest on today's avoidable harm. In the long run, these choices become climate. Climate is what a heart builds its seasons by. The unshaken foundation proves itself in how it holds weight that shifts. People do not stand perfectly still. Days do not distribute pressure evenly. Some mornings ask you to carry more silence than usual, to host grief without converting it into commentary, to keep a room warm while a storm names itself. Other afternoons ask you to carry laughter that refuses to apologize for its volume, to let celebration be fully itself without fearing scarcity's scowl. Your footing does not complain when the beams above dance. It simply remembers that joy and sorrow are both heavy in their own way. Women read this steadiness as the right to be complex without breaking anything. Crisis does not turn your foundation into a stage. It turns it into a place to stand. This is the distinction for which the feminine is grateful. When alarms sound, you do not perform calm. You practice it. You count what is true before you narrate what is dramatic. You ask small, accurate questions that make action possible. You insist on kindness at the very moment cruelty is cheapest. You do not mistake motion for meaning, nor do you baptize delay as wisdom when courage is called for. In such hours, those beside you discover that being led by you is not a loss of agency. It is a return of clarity. Permanence in your care is never rigidity. You flex where love requires it, the way a good frame flexes in weather and then returns to center. You are willing to learn publicly, to change a plan when new information arrives, to interrupt a habit that has outlived its holiness. This willingness does not make you indecisive. It makes you honest. Honesty is a better anchor than pride. It keeps the structure from becoming museum still, beautiful to behold and impossible to live in. Women are proud of a man whose strength can bow without breaking and rise without boasting. Your foundation carries memory with reverence and without nostalgia. It remembers who steadied you when you could not yet hold your own beams. It remembers who named the rot before it spread and who taught you the grammar of repair. It refuses to romanticize the scaffolding seasons, but it refuses to despise them too. You have learned to bless your younger self for building with the tools he had, and to thank the wiser hands that placed better tools in yours. Because you can tell this truth without turning it into a brand, testimony remains tonic rather than theater. The story strengthens the structure instead of selling tours. The way you handle endings reveals the depth of your footing. You can decommission a room without salting the ground beneath it. You can thank a season while telling it the truth. You can release a role without dragging its furniture into every future conversation. You can let people be wrong about your motives for a time rather than burn the bridge that will one day be needed for reconciliation. Endings are where many men turn the house into a bonfire for the thrill of light. You tend the lamps and close the doors gently. This is why those who leave your orbit do not have to recover from you to return themselves to themselves. Practically, your foundation looks like a timetable that does not mortgage your gentleness, like money that tells the same story as your mouth. Like friendships that can pull you aside without losing you. Like desire that remains fluent in consent when heat rises. Like prayer that touches the ground it claims to bless. It looks like the way you arrive, fully, on time, with room for someone else's pace, and the way you leave, cleanly, with gratitude, as if tomorrow must live here too. It looks like dignity given to the invisible work. The dishes done, the emails clarified, the keys left where hands can find them, the child who can predict your footsteps. Invisible work is where visible lives are saved. It is not lost on you that a foundation is mostly unseen. The pride you are asked to carry, then, is mostly quiet. It will be heard in the way a woman says your name when someone asks what safety feels like with a face. It will be heard in the way your friends describe your absence. The meeting still ended on time. The house still felt like home. The plan still held because the pattern held. It will be heard in the way strangers benefit from choices you made that they will never know you made. If you are tempted to call this small, remember that all cathedrals are towers of unseen stone. You are not small, you are exact. Walk on in this strength that does not need spotlight to be strong. Let your feet keep preaching the sermon your lips cannot improve. Here is ground that will hold, even when the weather forgets its manners. Let women keep being proud not of your legend, but of the way their lives feel beside your life. Steadier, kinder, able to dream again without taking out loans from fear. This is the unshaken foundation. It is not glamorous, it is glorious. Chosen one, prayer that stays in the mouth starves the world. Prayer that moves into the body, the calendar, the ledger, the tone. This is the prayer that turns days into sanctuaries. You have become such a prayer. Not an event at the edges of life, but a rhythm at its center. Feminine single women sense it, not because you recite verses loudly, but because proximity to you feels like being blessed without ceremony. They are proud of you in the way people are proud of clean water. They drink and remember while drinking that someone kept the source pure. Your living prayer begins before light, when you present your appetites and your plans to the same altar and ask them to tell the truth to each other. Appetite without prayer becomes hunger that legislates. Planning without prayer becomes control, cosplaying as care. You let devotion moderate both. You ask for the wisdom to pace love so it lasts, the courage to set boundaries that protect tenderness, the humility to be corrected while there is still time to change. Then you get up and do the very small things those petitions require. The glass of water, the early message, the quiet stretch, the refusal to let a screen decide your first sight. Holiness without housekeeping is a story that will not survive noon. A living prayer does not wait for a platform. It pays attention to thresholds. You pause at doorways and remember that crossing changes people. You choose to change them for joy. You bless rooms by lowering your volume, by raising your curiosity, by noticing the labor that made the room possible. You treat elevators as confessions of shared fragility and stairs as rehearsals for endurance. You let roads teach you patience, and grocery lines teach you to tip in eye contact as well as in currency. These are not sentimental gestures. They are the liturgy of sanity. When practiced often, they deliver a city from rudeness, 2 citizens at a time. The living prayer speaks most clearly in how you treat time. You keep Sabbath as rebellion against the empire of exhaustion. You end meetings when they should end so that evenings have a chance to be holy. You arrive when you said you would because you refuse to make other people's nervous systems finance your spontaneity. You leave when you said you would because you refuse to make presents into possession. You hold interruptions with discernment. Some are mercy in disguise, some are theft with a smile. And you answer each according to wisdom instead of flattery. Under this stewardship, time becomes hospitable again. Hospitality is what love looks like when it wears a clock.